Then I mean, you sound, in a sense, quite optimistic.
I'm very optimistic.
But then why is it that it feels as though actually things are getting worse rather than better?
I think that's a backlog of problems that are still going to come through. So I think we have a backlog of people who've been slightly brainwashed. Companies have gone woke. But I think the beginning of this super tanker is beginning to change course.
Okay.
And it's going to take, I think it'll probably take about a decade.
Well, what about education? Because I mean, surely education is going to be the key to this. And this is why I'm particularly dismayed. Well, I have good days and bad days. So sometimes I'm with you and I think, oh, well, this will all be resolved because I have a faith in humanity ultimately. But then on other days, I think actually maybe we've left it too late. And the reason I say that is because I often speak to teachers. I used to be a teacher and I know a lot of teachers. And they say that this stuff, such as critical race theory, extreme identity politics, the idea that free speech is not necessarily a good thing, and all of this is seeping into schools and teachers, and it is becoming more common. Not just in terms of the texts they're invited to teach or not teach, more to the point, but that colleagues are starting to raise issues and questions that make them seem like actually the liberal values that I used to stand for aren't necessarily shared by all of my colleagues here. Now, if that's the case, and if that's happening at educational level, at primary school level, then what hope is there for the next generation? Because that's where we're creating the adults of the future.
Yeah. Part of why I'm optimistic is our education system is poor. 18% of kids leave our secondary schools and are not reading or writing at an acceptable level.
How many, sorry?
18%.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Down to the Commissioner of England for Education. It was in their report a couple of years ago. So we can't teach kids to read and write. The kids I work with on the streets have all had 11 years of education, and their level of education is extremely poor. So I know that our education system has bigger problems than this. Things come in fashion. This is fashionable at the moment, but fashions come and go.
Yeah.
The big problem for me, I think, is universities. And the only way we're going to deal with universities if we look at their funding. And I think only the government can do that. So I don't like banning things. I don't want to ban courses that universities run. But what I want the government to do is say, this list of courses, so women's studies and lesbian dance theory studies, you can still run those degrees if you want to, but no student will be able to get a government grant to do it because they have no benefit. But if you're doing chemistry or physics, in fact, we'll reduce the cost of your course because we need people who do physics and chemistry. Our university system treats every degree as equal, and they're not equal. Some are a load of rubbish, some are we really need.
I actually think doing lesbian dance theory studies would be quite interesting. I mean, is there not a case to be made for education for its own sake and, exploring an interesting topic?
That's why I wouldn't ban them. I just don't think the taxpayer should fund them. And when you do get a grant, really, the government is funding it. We are funding it.
Yeah.
I think something like 80% never get paid back.
But then what about the arts? Say, what about something like literature? Because you could argue, couldn't you? Well, you can become an expert in English literature, but that's not going to help you. You're not going to, build any buildings out of that. You're not going to heal any wounds. But there is something to be said about the artistic health of a nation. That's actually quite important.
I'm a little bit of a Philistine when it comes to the art side of things. I'm probably not the best person to speak to, and I better not go on too much about it because I'll get cancelled for a different reason.
Oh, different reason.
Because
it'll be my lot that are cancelling you.
Yeah, exactly. I'm anti-art.
Yeah.
When you come off a council estate and you've been to a poor school and you're trying to get a job, and the kids I'm working with, when the government announces today, on the budget about how much they're going to put money into museums and the Victoria Albert Museum, I go, what a waste of money.
But you see, that's your experience, isn't it?
Exactly, absolutely. So I'm not saying it shouldn't be done, and I know lots of people will enjoy that. They're called the middle class. But the kids I'm working with on the streets makes no difference to them whatsoever. So you still should have it.
So you think this is very much a class issue? But then you have arguments such as that put forward by Roger Scruton and the idea that actually when you have a thriving artistic culture, which is reflected in the architecture, which is reflected in works of art on the street. I mean, and I mean good works of art, not just frivolous stuff. That it actually can have a positive effect on all classes. It is a democratizing thing Because it's not just about the middle classes then, it's about absolutely everyone. I mean, there is a case to be made there, surely.
There is, but not if you can't read and write.
So it's about priorities. Then.
Priorities, not if your dad is in jail and your mum's a heroin addict. Looking at that beautiful building isn't going to sort your life out one bit. So it's all about prioritising. I'm not saying we shouldn't do it. I'm just saying my 2 decades career has been looking at real social problems, not what I would call the add-ons.
Have you had any luck in terms of, resolving or attempting to resolve this issue of education? You described a failed education system there, and what can we actually do? And is there an appetite within government to seriously grapple with that problem? Because the statistic you quoted me there is actually quite shocking.
Yeah.
So are they going to do anything?
No, because they're scared of the union, so scared of teachers' union. We don't seem to have a politician anymore who wants to fight. It's all about compromise. What I would do is I would set up in every neighbourhood a different type of secondary school, call it a technical secondary school. So you go to a normal primary school up to 11.
Yeah.
When you get to 11, you and your parent decide where they're going to send you. So these aren't dumping grounds. These are where your parent wants you to go. So you have the normal secondary school, do GCSEs, maybe go to university. That's one path. Or you have a different secondary school called a technical school where you will go, you'll still do English and maths, but there'll be lots of other things you can opt into. So there may be trades. So you might start bricklaying at 13 to understand bricklaying, plumbing, electrician. You might want to be a gamer. There might be a computer section where people can do gaming. Yeah. You can be trained about how to run a business, do your taxes. There might be sections there about hospitality, how to be a chambermaid, how to work behind a bar, how to do stock control. So when young people leave at 16, 17, and they don't want to go to university, they're employable from day one.
Could that not be resolved with just restoring the importance of apprenticeships and that kind of thing? And because there has been a move, hasn't there, from successive governments, we have to get everyone into university.
Yeah,
but actually, for a lot of people, I think, well, for one thing, you can earn a lot more from some jobs through apprenticeships, yeah. but also people have a more natural aptitude for that, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. So apprentices, fantastic. We need more apprentices. And again, I'm talking about the young people I work with on the streets. So when they're 14, 15, 16, 17, and I'm chatting to them, and they'll, can hardly read and write, and hated school, and you ask why they hated it. Well, we tortured them for 11 years. They hated every day, but we made them go every day. And a one-size-fits-all system that wasn't built for them. And they're tortured, and we wonder why they leave at 16, angry and violent and hating society. We tortured them, where if they could have left with no qualifications at 15, 16, but with aspiration and dreams and knowing that I'm not academically gifted, I may be even low intelligence, but I now have some skills. That means I can get a job. And it might mean I can buy a house. It might mean I can have a family and pay for them. But at the moment, for 20% of the kids in our schools, they're basically holding centres for them until the spring of their 16th birthday. And then we open the doors and we go, there we go. You're just as unemployable today as you were when you were 5 when you came into the system. And that's not good enough.
Do you think that any of this is relating to discipline or a breakdown of discipline?
Absolutely.
Not just within schools, but also within families?
Maybe not discipline in families. Definitely the lack of fathers in the home. If we could solve this one problem, if I had a magic wand, that's the one I would wish away, that we had fathers in the home with their children. That would solve most of our social issues.
Well, you're already pushing back against the social justice viewpoint, which is that masculinity is essentially toxic, right? So
absolutely.
So surely...
No such thing as toxic masculinity. There's toxic individuals, not toxic masculinity. We need more fathers in the home, because fathers and mothers bring different things to the raising of their children. A child will come in at 5 years old, 10 years old, cut knee. I fell off my bike. Mum will go, oh, what's gone on? Get the first aid kit. You okay? We're going to put a bandage on it. And your dad will go, shut up crying and get back out. You're fine.
Of course, people would say, well, that's gender stereotyping. Isn't it? Maybe the mother sometimes could do that as well.
Maybe they can. Yeah. Maybe both will do it. But in general, that's their roles, because we're predetermined to be like that. And that's when the child then realises, I'm not fragile. You know, I can take a bump. I'm not going to cry. So when someone calls me a name, that's not going to hurt me because I didn't hurt me when I cut my knee. So we need fathers in the home. They bring something that mothers can't bring. We need mothers as well. I'm not saying fathers, but I'm saying they're equal.
Yeah.
But we need fathers.
But then in schools, you have the added problem, and as someone who's been a teacher, as I keep saying, you know, it is harder to discipline kids because they know there are not necessarily consequences, really. All you can really do is talk to them in a stern way. I mean, what are you going to do?
There's always consequences. It's all about what those consequences are and how you deliver it.
Yeah.
So have you been to Catherine Burble Singh's school?
I haven't, and I know about it. I've read a lot about it.
I went a few weeks ago. I knew it was going to be excellent. It was far better than I ever imagined.
So can I just ask you about this? Because from what I've read, so at Catherine Burble Singh's school, so it's Michaela school.
Yep.
So the kids aren't allowed to talk in the corridors.
Yep.
Everyone's facing forward in the classrooms. If they forget a pen or something like that, they can get a detention. So it's very, very strict.
Yep.
I was even told that in the lunch breaks, they get set topics to talk about, or that they took.
That was amazing. Yeah, absolutely amazing.
So talk about that experience. And
So I said to Catherine, what do you do when you have a kid here who is dysfunctional? You know, and she went, they conform. She said, they may push back at the beginning, but everybody else is doing as they're told.
Because she's not dealing with posh kids here. These are
inner city kids.
Yeah.
There's no selection. The council send her the kids to her school. She has no say who turns up.
Yeah.
So this is not like we'll pick the best ones.
Yeah.
And she's got an ethos in that school. And if you can do it in Wembley, you can do it anywhere. And the ethos is, it's all about personal responsibility. It's all about discipline. And it's all about, we want the best for you. You've only got 5 years in this school. And when you leave, you're going to be formidable when you leave this school.
And do you think that kind of approach could be rolled out? I mean, look, you've got to look at the results of the school. It's doing
amazing.
very well. Like that's what I would say. Well, that's incontestable.
Yeah.
The kids go there from difficult backgrounds, and they do well.
Yeah.
And they enjoy it.
Yeah.
And they are grateful, and all of those things. So these things are impossible to argue against. And yet there is a real resistance within educational circles to this approach, because they will say it's draconian, they'll say it's not people-centred, all the rest of it. What are the chances that this can become a more normalised approach?
The government
to
have
teaching?
to want it. The government you're not going to get every school like Michaela because there's only one Catherine. So, but you can raise every other school up to be more like that, and that's about the government demanding that. So at the moment, schools are rewarded for how many kids you get with so many GCSEs, grade A's and B's and things like that.
In terms of league tables?
League tables. So what happens is you turn up at 11 years old and your academic achievement is really low.
Yeah.
Are we going to in 5 years, are we going to be able to get you from there to there? And the answer is we doubt it. But if you come in there, we'll spend all our time and money getting these kids to there.
Of course. And then
So we focus on the kids we're going to get success with so they can increase our league table. So all the kids down here, these are the kids I work with on the streets, then I've forgotten about because they're not going to improve our league table.
Yeah.
So if we can kick them out, even better. But they're going to add no value. So how we reward schools is wrong. What we need to do with schools is we should assess them when they go to secondary school. And let's say a scale of 1 to 10.
Yeah.
Let's say you're a 2. You're quite poor. You're a 2 academically. But then when you leave school, you only get 1 or 2 GCSEs, but we've raised you to a 7.
Yeah.
That means we raised you 5 steps. Well, that should be worth more than getting a kid who was an 8 and now we've raised him to a 9 in 5 years.
They call this value added within schools.
And that's how we should judge schools more. The discipline is the major reason why the vast majority of schools fail. There is hardly any discipline in the schools. The teachers, I used to be based in schools as well, I've worked in schools.
Yeah.
They think there is, but there absolutely isn't.
Well, some teachers that I've spoken to about this feel that the power balance is shifted too much towards the pupils. For instance, and then the unions will confirm this, that there are a lot of problems with false allegations against teachers because pupils know that it just takes an allegation to see that teacher suspended, and it can be completely fabricated. That's not to say there aren't sometimes abuses and things that need to be addressed. And that makes it very difficult, doesn't it? Because you need to have an environment in which someone who is being abused can come forward. But if they know that they can do that, this is likely to be exploited. by those with a grudge, and that's
Yeah.
that's very difficult.
And then once you've reported one teacher, I'll tell you now, every other teacher will leave you alone.
Yeah,
I'm not messing with him or her
Yeah.
or telling them what to do because look what they did to Mr. Jones.
yeah, exactly.
They can do what they want. I don't care.
It's almost as though there's a kind of cancel culture within schools as well, I suppose.
There is poor teachers, and I've seen quite a few of them.
Yeah,
And they seem to be almost impossible to get rid of. We need a system, just like any other business, where we can let go teachers who are not. 'Cause it's a gift. Being a good teacher is a gift. And
well, it's a vocational thing, really.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, to defend teachers a little bit, I would say that it is much harder job than people think.
Absolutely.
You know,
Yeah.
and I think,
Yep.
in a sense, if teachers had more support, it might be an easier job, or at least a job that they would be more thrilled about.
No,
You know.
absolutely. The government need to do more. The government need to take this fight on, but they won't. So we keep hearing about levelling up. If we want to level up the north and the inner cities, 2-decade plan all around education, improve the schools. Let's stop having schools like holding centres. Let's get rid of the PRUs, the pupil referral units. We should have schools that say we're never going to give up on a child, no matter how you behave, because we're going to have a section of the school where we put children who won't behave in class. We stop giving up on children. We stop kicking them out because some of these kids want to be kicked out. And our education system needs overhauling, and we need to tackle the unions.
Do you not think, though, that some people are, it sounds terribly pessimistic, but almost beyond redemption, as in sometimes there are characters in society who you can't help, who you can't lift up, no matter what you do? You don't believe that?
In my society, I never want to give up on anybody. So what's great about this country is we'll give you a chance after chance after chance after chance after chance, and you can mess them all up, and you can tell us to F off, and you can spit in our face. But do you know what? Then we give you another chance, because we never give up on people in this country.
Did you never feel in all your charity work that sometimes someone was just so difficult that you
All
were
the
like,
time.
yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. Did you
All
not
the
feel?
time.
Let's leave that one.
No, all the time that, I want to pull my hair out.
Yeah.
That it's like, I just want to grab him and shake some sense into them. Of course, these are, the people we're working with are not, some of them are not easy people to work with, but in a compassionate society, we don't write people off. We just, even though we may fail with them,
Yeah.
well, that doesn't mean the next agency or person who comes along isn't a better fit that can help them and support and do something with them.
Yes.
I just don't want to write people off.
Sure.